Awesome. So yeah, hello, welcome back to another episode of Meet the Members, where we have the chance to sit down with some of our wonderful residents who call Ormeau Bass their home. And we're here today with the lovely Gabi Feenan, who shares the office right next to mine. And shame on me, this is probably the first time that I'm really going to get to know a bit more about you. So hey, look at Ormeau Bass bringing people together. This is just the way it works. And to start, I would love to hear a little bit about your time spent in the warehouse.
Okay.
Like pre-bath. This is Gabi's pre-bath origin story.
Pre-bath. So I worked in a supermarket. I'll not mention it for legal reasons, but I worked there for nearly 6 years.
Nice.
And I worked across all sorts of different things, but I ended up at the end of it, once I finished uni, I ended up working in the warehouse portion of it. So you'd be doing all sorts of stuff. Like I spent my days pretty much just like bringing in 42-ton lorries, pulling stuff in and out, up and down lifts, cages, all sorts of stuff, and then pulling it 100 meters to the other end of the warehouse for it to be packed out and all sorts of things like that. And well, to be fair, you met an awful lot of interest in lorry drivers and nothing else. It did keep it interesting, but I started doing all sorts of stuff. Like it was quite physical, but it was good crack as well. It was a good workout.
Actually, my next question was, did you get ripped doing it?
Yeah. I will say, like, I have noticed since I've stopped, I'm like, I should probably go to the gym now.
Weak sauce. You're like, no.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, it was a good workout. Like I think like most days you'd end up doing like about 25,000 steps, like maybe 10 miles, just walking up and down, all sorts of stuff.
And they're like loaded steps. It's not just like going
it's
for a
not
walk.
Just down,
Yeah.
Like, oh, here's 42 tons. Like, just pull it on with you, but you maybe get like 2 or 3 lorries in a day. And you just turn around.
It's mad.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like I was interviewing a guy recently, and he was a lorry driver, and he made the point. There was this moment in the interview where like he like paused, and he's like, "See, everything in this room, absolutely everything, used to be on the back of a lorry."
That's true.
And I was like, "Oh my
That's
goodness!"
So
like totally. And like thinking about you in the warehouse, like this is how the food gets into my fridge.
Yeah, it is, but I don't think people realise. Like, even I'd worked on checkouts and stuff, and I slowly worked my way to the back of the store. And like, just so many things go on. Like, even like, especially with COVID and Brexit and all the delays and stuff. Like, people don't realise how much stuff actually comes in. Like, we were just one store, and you get up to like 6 lorries a day.
Yeah.
Every day, and it's just like constant, and like even still the shelves were empty. And it's just mental to think like what actually goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I mean, like, oh, do you not have it out the back? I'm like, there's not left. Like, you could have bought it all.
I know, we just think that like, oh, you have an infinite supply of everything around the back, and like if it's not there, just go get it. Like,
just
stop being lazy.
Like,
yeah.
I was like, I wish it was that tidy. Like,
that
I could just find stuff. Like, yeah, no, it's a different world. Like,
crazy.
Absolutely.
So talk to us a wee bit about, because we take so much for granted, and like, you know, one of the things you take for granted is you go into a unnamed major flat pack furniture seller, and you just get the stuff, and you know it's MDF, and you put it in your car, and you fly home, and you struggle with the wee crappy Allen keys for half an hour, and then all of a sudden, you know, there's your furniture.
Yeah.
Like, what goes into that process? Do you know anything about the hidden world of
your
furniture?
Of furniture? Well, like, the problem is, like, nobody really talks about it. It is actually quite a big issue that I don't think anybody realises it. And I didn't know about it really until like last year when I was in uni doing my final year project, and I was just trying to find something sustainable that I wanted to work on. And I just came across like this fact of like 22 million tons of furniture go to landfill every year, and that's just in the UK, like never mind anywhere else. And then you think about it, it's like actually mental. And even like if you want like a comparison, I think
just in the UK,
just in
22
UK,
million tons
every year, just in the UK.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and like you think about it, I don't think people worry about it because, you know, like you have your furniture and you'll keep it for so many years, and like, oh, I'm only throwing it away like every 7 years. But it's like, if everybody's doing that, like, it does start to
it's
pile
like
up.
washing machines. Have you ever seen like just like the mountains of washing machines?
Yeah.
You're like, oh well, there's just a lot of people, this is our waste.
Yeah, exactly. So like, no, I don't think people realise, because it's like you're not throwing a chair away a day.
Yeah.
But then like everybody talks about food waste, which is obviously another issue, but I think comparatively it's maybe only 8 or 9 million tons. Like if you think about it, like,
wow.
So like it is a major issue, but yeah, so the problem with this, that a lot of it is the likes your MDF and stuff, which has like tons and tons of chemicals in it, so it can't actually biodegrade or anything, and like can't really be recycled in most places at the minute. So like it just lies there, and then it like lets carcinogens and all these stuff into the atmosphere, which are like obviously not great. Nobody wants that. Like, but yeah, I think that's the big issue is that people don't think about it because you don't do it that often. But they're big pieces. Do you know what I mean? It's not like you're throwing an apple. Like, yes, of course, food waste is still an issue, but like a wardrobe is a hell of a lot bigger than an apple is. At least an apple can decompose. Your wardrobe, how many years are going to be sitting there?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, at least the apple can like fertilize the ground somewhat or compost it, but like your wardrobe's just sitting there. And all like that like white shiny stuff around the edges and stuff. Like that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
It's not good. But like, even at that, like some of the stuff that you do get, the flatpack stuff's not even like good quality. I've gotten it before and it's already chipped before you get it.
Yeah.
But you're like, alright, like, well, it was cheap anyway, like, we'll not worry about it.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, if people actually invested in their furniture and like it was something that you could hold on to and you put the sort of value into it, like you would hold on to it for a hell of a lot longer.
Well, I think that's the key thing. Like you used the word like value.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone about this the other. Actually, no. I tell you, I was talking to my butcher about this.
Right. Okay.
So I walked in and I was like, "That salmon looks great. How much is it?" And he was like, "It's £22 a kilo." And I was like, "What the heck? Like, why is that so expensive?" And he just looked at me dead in my face and he was like, "Because that's how much it actually costs."
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Like, fair play. Like, we're
right,
so used to like getting stuff. You know, we use the expression like, "Oh, what a steal."
Yeah.
And it is a steal.
It is 100%.
Because you're robbing from somebody or from something.
Yeah, that's what it is too. And it's like, you know, the whole, like, that's why I'm doing Korky, and like the whole thing is like the cork comes from Portugal. They're all independent farmers. Like, that's, you want to be giving back to that sort of thing. Like, that's what I want to do anyway.
Yeah.
Depends on the person, but you know, I don't think people realize what goes into the whole process of like your furniture starting as like a piece of wood to actually get into your house, and like how much energy and all the consumption that comes along with it, and like the people that are involved. But it's also like, well, how much do the original farmers and stuff and like harvesters actually get out of it? So that's what I'm trying to
Interesting.
change.
You remind me a little bit of like the guys at Napoleon, the coffee shop. I just had this in my head where it's like you're getting up on stage, you're talking about like single origin cork that's sustainably farmed, and all the hipsters are like, whoa. So I actually did want to talk to you about Cork. Obviously, it's part of your brand, but like I've spent a surprising amount of time with Cork over the last few years because I've used it as my soundproofer. I built a wee studio during lockdown at home, and then I also kitted out the studio, the podcast studio in the Bass here with Cork. So I've just been exposed to this world of Cork. You very kindly helped me out with some Cork glue that you had lying around, which is, you know, another neighbourly advertisement for Ormeau Bass there, helping each other out. Tell us about this weird and wonderful world of Cork. What actually is it? You've already dropped that it comes from Portugal. Well, yours does anyway. Yeah. Is it sustainable? Is it a good thing, or is it a lesser of two evils? Tell us about Cork.
So my sort of argument with Cork is, so Cork has all these great, like, wonderful features about it. So it's like biodegradable, recyclable, decay resistant, like anti-carcinogenic, all these really good like environmental things. But even at that, so the cork actually is just the bark off the tree. So you're not cutting down the tree at all, you're just taking the bark off. It gets stripped off, I think every 9 years. So you can do that every 9 years consistently. And by actually taking the bark off, you're actually helping in slowing global warming because it absorbs more CO2.
Ooh, look at this. Yeah. This is good.
So it absorbs more CO2 than if you just left the bark on it. So like it makes sense to take it off. So it's coming off anyway. You might as well make use of it. It's just lying there.
Yeah.
So the problem then too is that a lot of cork, obviously, like, you know, you have your wine bottles and stuff, but a lot of them have switched to screw caps. So like the cork industry was like a little bit on edge there for a bit because you know, like, people were switching to
Big Cork was panicking.
Was
crazy.
And it's
you don't really see corks too often now in your bottles.
It's not really a big thing anymore. But like, if you think about how much of that cork was being used for wine bottles and corkage, and now they just suddenly like, no, I don't want you anymore. It's like, well,
crazy.
We still have all the cork, we still need something to do with it. But even at that, the stuff, like, there's only so much that can be used that's like food grade. So then the rest of it's just sitting there. So like, if you are ever in Portugal, you might notice that like there's lots of, like, they'll make handbags and purses and shoes, all sorts of stuff out of cork. They do all sorts of things. Actually pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
And so there's all sorts of stuff that you can do with it. But even at that as well, like, the people that harvest the cork, I think they're called tiradores.
Ooh.
I think. Don't come at me with that pronunciation. But so they're like one of the highest paid jobs in agriculture, like, globally.
No way.
Yeah, you never hear about it. It's only that I started looking into it that I realised.
We need to do like an in-depth podcast documentary
Yeah,
where we
Cork.
like go to Portugal,
Yeah, we'll go to
talk to the
Portugal.
tiradores.
Yeah, talk to the tiradores. It'd be
Class.
great. Yeah. So like, all this material is sitting there. They're already like cutting it off the trees anyway. Most of the wine like industry isn't using it anymore. So it's like, right, well, what can I do with that? Like, you know, like Cork Furniture. I'm not the first person to come up with Cork Furniture. Like, let's be honest. But even at that, like, why not make use of it? Why not try and do something a bit different with it anyway? So got a load of cork in and then just started going with it and just seeing what came out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started doing this as part of your final year project.
Yeah.
You were were you studying product design?
Yeah.
Okay. I assume because you're a product designer. I just
them
quick
two
maths.
together. Yeah.
So you get all this cork in.
Yeah.
Do you have to buy cork? Because I obviously just bought cork in like sheets and rolls.
Yeah.
Can you buy cork in like a different way and then do whatever you want with it, or do you kind of have to order in what you want?
Well, I just buy it in sheets.
In sheets.
Yeah. Same sort of thing.
Cool.
But just like a bit thicker.
So
than
how do you
top.
go from that to like a piece of furniture that you can use?
So I CNC it.
Which means.
So it's like CNC is like basically like a little drill bit that goes around and cuts it all out for you. So like I'll do it up on the computer, do it out in SolidWorks, you know, like basically put it out, like lay out the sheet and put all the parts on it, and then the machine knows where to cuts it out, and then I assemble it. So that's how it goes. And
computer cutting is what I'll remember it as
yeah,
for the rest of my life.
That's pretty much what it stands for, to be fair. But yeah, so that's what I do with it, and then the nice little glass top on it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what piece of furniture were you talking about there with the glass top, like a table?
Table, yeah. So it's tables at the minute, yeah.
Wow.
So I made a sleeved honor table.
Tell us more.
Yeah, so I took the map, like an OS map,
Yeah.
and I took the contour lines and then transferred that over into the computer, put it in SolidWorks, put it in the CNC,
Brilliant.
and then build it up.
So what's the limitations or the potential glories of like cork furniture? Like, could I have a cork bed? Could I have a cork sofa?
Yeah, cork sofas exist. They're
Really?
a thing. Yeah, a big thing in Australia actually.
What?
It's not really much of it over here. Like there's a couple of places like dot around. There's obviously like a lot in Portugal because that's like where it's all
Yeah.
from. But there's a couple of places in Australia and stuff with cork sofas.
How do you get around the constant like contracting and expanding of the cork based on like
It's
humidity
fine.
and climate? It's all fine.
Yeah, no, I actually was doing some like random like testing with it last year, and like I dumped it into like water and like left it to try and dye it just to see if I could dye it. And I left it in there I think maybe like a week, and I took it out and it was completely fine. It was as if like it hadn't been touched. It was just like a different colour now.
Cool.
Yeah, so there's no real issues with that I've come across.
Because I have even seen people use cork features in their gardens and stuff, and it
Yeah.
seems to be pretty resistant.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's great material.
So Korky is the name of your company.
Yeah.
I mean, why?
Well, yeah. So, I thought it sounded cool, but Korky is actually just Finnish for the word cork.
Epic.
So, and also kind of sounds like quirky. So
Yeah, it does,
It
yeah.
kind of marries well.
I really like the brand name, and I was like,
Thank you.
does this something that has a meaning, or is this something that has a meaning, or is it just something that sounds cool? And
It's a bit of both.
lo and behold, it's both.
It's a bit of both quirky and Finnish.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how did you go about juggling, hauling a few tons of stuff each shift in an undisclosed supermarket, doing university, and then kind of managing all the business stuff?
Yeah, so I was doing Corky just in uni, whatever, that was fine, and then graduated there last July, and then I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it, or if I was going to do anything. I was just applying for grad jobs, just sort of see what happened, and then I did Catalyst Invent, and specifically the student category, and I put it through that, and I was like, oh, like, we'll see what happens, and ended up winning it somehow. So then off the back of that, then I was like, all right, well maybe I'll actually give this a go, whatever. So I was still in the supermarket, and I was doing sort of both at once, but I kind of found like it was a big distraction, and it was kind of hard because you're like, I was just sitting in my house on my own, like trying to make this happen. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, don't even know where to go, don't know who to speak to.
Sure.
So then Brendan, who was one of the judges in Catalyst, it's also here.
Is that how you met Brendan?
Yeah,
Love
and so he just told me to come up here to have a chat, just to see the band, see what it's about, whatever. And I was like, all right, yeah, cool. So I came up and I was like, this place is like, this is so cool.
It's class.
Yeah, like you should have seen me when I came home. I was like, we hear this.
The they've got all this VR stuff in there, and they've got all this here, and did you know there's 100 different businesses inside?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was like. My mum's like, right, cool. And yeah, so I was just like, oh, this is legal, like this is class. And I was like, we're just sort of talking about like what would I actually do with Korky? What do I need to do to go like to the next step with it? And I was like, well, I feel like I need to get out of the supermarket because I'm like, I'm not in the right environment, don't really know what to be at. And he was like, well,
sure.
why don't you come up here? Like this would be class. And I was like, so cool, and like it's so reasonably priced as well. Like why wouldn't you? Do you know what I mean? So then a couple of weeks later, a job came up. So I was like, right, well, I'll work here part time. I'll be in the right environment, and I'll do Korky as well. So
class.
The rest is history.
It's good, and you're doing like the classic entrepreneurial move where you're working for a startup and you're building your own.
Yeah.
And I actually think that like you're far better doing that at this 100%. Stage than going 100% into your startup. Because again, like you said, like it is such like a scary feeling where you're like, I don't know where I am, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm meant to be doing.
Yeah. Like, I don't even like what's tax. Do you know what I mean? I don't know where to start with that. So like it's nice to be in this environment. Like you have all sorts of different people around you. Like, but everybody's done it before you. So like I'm like, oh, I could come in here, and if I have an issue, like I'll just say, someone go here. Have you done this before? I'm like, yeah, you just do this. I'm like, that was so easy. Like I would have spent hours on the internet like trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just makes all the difference.
But well, again, like I know I've used this example, I'll not like beat it to death. But like I genuinely was having major issues with my cork, and then it just so happened that like my next door neighbour in work is like a cork specialist. I was like
here's some glue.
this is Ormeau Bass at its finest. It's so good.
It's such a random crossover.
Yeah.
Because I walked in, I saw all this cork, and I was like, huh, I'm at home. Like, so yeah.
Awesome. In theory, could you make me a Giant's Causeway thing out of cork?
That's actually another table design I have.
Really?
Yeah.
Because when you said Steve Dunner, I was like,
I
want that Giant's Causeway thing.
So that's the whole plan. So I have a couple of different things in mind, but like, you know, I wanna do like a Northern Ireland inspired thing, like a whole range of stuff. Is the plan. So
very cool.
Start Steve Dunner, and we'll work our way around.
Yeah. Work your way all the major beautiful points of interest. You know.
Exactly.
Very cool. So you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but just to push it a bit further, like what is next for Korky? I know you have like big dreams, big visions. You mentioned the 22 million tons of waste in the UK alone. So you've got great scope there. The environmental wave should hopefully, and mixed metaphors here, provide a wind for the back of your sail. So it seems like you're primed in a pretty good position, a pretty good time.
Yeah.
So what are some of your steps to move this thing forward?
Money. No, so at the minute I'm just trying to sort out getting grants and stuff in to get the first piece of furniture out, and then just build from there really is the plan. See where it goes, see what people think of it, and build up from there, and kind of do all sorts of different things. Like I'll probably, maybe at some stage I'll probably expand beyond Cork and just do even like more sustainable things, but I think just for now I just try and get it up and running, get some stuff on the market, and build it up from there.
Awesome. Yeah, it's cool. Like your next kind of year or more, you're kind of going to be living that like artisan life. Yeah. Where you're making like really high end like pieces of furniture that are going to have a higher price point, but there's such a market for that. Yeah. Especially I think whenever people hear your vision, your story behind it, and if you connect it to that place, that Northern Irishness as well.
That's the whole thing.
Game over.
Like, you know, like everybody loves the little spots and stuff, but even at that, like, that's the kind of point of being like, oh well, you'll have a bit more of an emotional attachment, so you're less likely to throw it out. Yeah. Do you mean like you'd be like, oh, do you remember that time I went to Giant's Causeway as my nanny? Like, you know, stuff like that. So that's sort of where that came from. But I think even at that, like, people just love it. Cool. So yeah.
Cool. 2 questions. Okay.
Yeah.
First one is, what would you say to somebody listening who's considering coming to the baths? Okay. And then I'll hit you with the second one.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. It's like, why would I give someone like, okay, and question number 7, I want you to answer.
Okay. So what would I say? That's a great question. No, I would definitely say just go for it. Like, I mean, it's like, see, since coming here, like the progress that Korky has made, like, is absolutely mental, and I know for a fact that if I had been sitting in my room trying to do it, it would not happen. Like, there's just no way. But it's even things like hearing about different opportunities and like all sorts of different, like there's just so much advice and knowledge to be had in here. And like even at that, like we do yoga, we do all sorts of stuff. Like it's just like a whole different world. And like, is this what it's like to work for Google? Like, you know, let's have some pizza.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, if we filled up like the baths downstairs in like a hot tub or like a sleep pod, it probably would be like Google.
I'd be all for that.
Yeah. Could you corkify the tubs
Yeah.
to make them into like wee sleep
That would
cocoons?
be so good, yeah, with
Bro,
little
I would love a
bits.
cork cocoon to
Yeah.
sleep in.
Yeah,
Is it
well,
breathable? Yeah, it should be, isn't
yeah.
it? Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
You're like, Cork's got it all.
What can you do, really? But yeah, I would say just go for it. Like, even just come up for a visit, see what it's about, and like I said, like after my first visit, I was like, wow, like.
Yeah, the
I
Disney
need to be
music
here.
starts playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to be here. So yeah, I would say just go for it, give it a go, see what happens.
Cool. Well, final question then. You're
Yeah.
22,
Uh huh.
so it's 4 years ago, but a lot has changed in those 4 years. I always love to ask people, and it's the wee token gesture, but
Okay.
what would you say to an 18-year-old Gabi? Like if you had a few minutes of her time.
Just relax, like
Yeah.
I like if you'd have asked me even this time last year if this is where I would be now, I'm like no chance. Like I would have told you grad job, like whatever.
Sure.
But like I'm so glad I didn't go down that route. But yeah, I would say probably just like relax, take it in your stride. Like it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be alright. Like what is I think I've adopted this new thing. Like what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
And like it just makes life so much easier. Like
Yeah.
give everything your best shot, and like whatever happens.
Oh man, can you imagine like sitting in a grad job right now?
I don't think I could do it.
It's so crazy to
I
think,
don't
isn't
think I
it?
could do it. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but I
Yeah.
just think for me, I would be so like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just like the diversity
Yeah.
of like doing your own thing.
What like my wife like said this thing to me one time. I was like freaking out about like having the business. I was like, what if this happens? What if that
Yeah.
happens? Like, and I was so caught up in my head. And she literally turned around at me and just went, "You do realize you could just get a job if all this fails?" And I was like, "Oh yeah!" Like, there's also that thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I was the exact same. Like, I was sort of in between, like, oh, like, do I leave the supermarket? Like, I worked there for nearly 6 years. Like, it's all I've pretty much known. Like,
Yeah.
and it's safe. Do you know what I mean? It's a comfort
Absolutely.
zone. Like, you know what you're gonna get. And I was like, oh, but then it was like pitched me of like, well, if you didn't give it a go now, and then somebody else came out with Cork Furniture like 2 years down the line and was really successful, could you live with yourself? And I was like, oh no, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't. So I was like, I give it a go now, and sure, we'll see what happens with it.
Yeah.
Just take it as it comes. But like, what have you got to lose, really? The jobs will always be there waiting for you.
There will be though.
Yeah.
There definitely will be.
Well, hopefully they'll have me back in the supermarket. That's it. But
No, the only thing you'll be in the supermarket for is to like sell your awesome furniture. If somehow you were able to get it at a sustainable price that's ethical,
yeah,
and they
the
would want
whole
to stock
shebang.
that. Yeah.
Could work. Could work.
Times are changing. You never know.
No, that's the vision.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Banbridge proud, Gabi. Awesome to talk to you. Thanks for your time today. Thank you for spending this time with us, getting to know Gabi a bit more. And like I said at the start, this is part of a series called Meet the Members. We have the chance to sit down. I don't even know how long did we go for there. I will say 23 minutes ish long conversations with some of the incredible people who call this place their business home. As Gabi said, if you want to pop down here and get a tour of the building and see if this place is right for you, we would love to see you. It's very easy to do. You can check it out on the website. You're probably listening to this on the website, so it's going to be up there somewhere. I feel like a YouTuber now.
Yeah,
You'd be
yeah.
like, just hit the bell, like and subscribe. Yeah, really appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and maybe see you around the baths sometime soon. Cheers.